Now, the NFL draft, it's getting rolling here pretty quick. We've kind of gone through the underwear Olympics. We've had different scouting reports out there for where this guy should be drafted and different mock drafts, all that. You know one guy that maybe isn't getting talked about enough that I think we need to have a discussion about? Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett is one of the most intriguing prospects in this entire class. Forget just quarterback. How about just this entire class? There's a projected grade on him, per the experts, right around the 4th round. And the draft is based in, to my understanding, science. That's the reason why we're having Will Levis shoot up draft boards, or why Anthony Richardson is making scouts salivate, because of what you can physically see, measure, and account for scientifically that projects well. Okay, I don't know that either of those guys put together a better season than Stetson Bennett. Now, I'm not saying I take him before Stetson Bennett, but I'm just saying the draft sometimes is counterintuitive to what we saw on the field. And Stetson Bennett, to me, is like that one friend that everybody had, and during graduation, you're having a conversation with them, and you're just not sure what you're going to get with them after graduation. You would not be surprised if they went and ran a Fortune 500 company. You wouldn't be surprised if they ended up on their mom's couch for the next 5 years. Like, the extremes for what they could achieve and what they may achieve or may not achieve are pretty high, right? That's kind of how it feels about Stetson Bennett. You could sell me on the fact that he may end up being a long-term starter in the NFL and have a really good career. You could also convince me that, hey, he may not be in the league in the next 2 years. A lot of, high highs and low lows. More thoughts on this, but really quickly, make sure you're subscribed. Got a lot to talk about. We talk exclusively college football. Stetson Bennett, I wholeheartedly believe, is still one of college football's very own, because he hasn't yet taken a snap in the NFL or gotten drafted by an NFL team. So until that happens, we're still claiming Stetson Bennett for the college football community. All right? Now, like I said, the pros and the cons, the highs and the lows, we got to measure those for Stetson Bennett. The cons are fairly obvious. There's a lot of other quarterbacks with more tools. He's only 5'11", was a walk-on, nothing really elite that jumps off the tape when you watch Stetson Bennett, or rather, let me rephrase that. Nothing really elite when you look at Stetson Bennett from a combine perspective. Does some really good things on tape. We'll get to that. But when it comes to the cons, a lot of them are scientific, fairly obvious, not much more to talk about. The thing that he didn't do that, or the thing that he did rather, that didn't help himself, was getting arrested before the draft process. That hurts. That's tough, man. Like, you're already undersized. You already have the walk-on label. There's already enough people that have something to say about you. And now you give them a little bit more fuel to that fire. Now, I personally don't have a ton of concern about that for Stetson Bennett. Really a one-time thing from my estimation. I don't think that's a reason why you shouldn't draft him, but it is a little bit more fuel to the anti-Stetson Bennett fire, which is frustrating if you're rooting for this kid, which transparently we are on this program. We're not journalists. We can play favorites here. Stetson Bennett is someone that I root for openly. Now, the pros, I think, are also fairly obvious. Outside of a combine setting, and don't get it twisted, didn't have a bad combine. Threw the ball well. Ran well. Good athlete. The pros are obvious. 2-time national champ. Didn't take no for an answer. Beat out a 5-star. Was given every reason not to come back to Georgia after going to JUCO, after walking on at Georgia, then coming back on scholarship. The ups and the downs, and he was just consistent. That's one thing I don't know we talk about enough. He had so much adversity, which we talk about a lot, but how much pressure that was on him at Georgia over the last 2 years was enormous. Because if they didn't win the national title in 2021, it would have been, man, they didn't win it because of Stetson Bennett. Man, you had all this talent on that team. You had so many guys that could have helped you. You had a generational defense, and Stetson Bennett didn't allow you to win a national title. There was so much pressure on Georgia, and he was the quarterback that got them over the hump. That many had tried, many had failed, and Stetson Bennett, the walk-on, the one that nobody wanted to start at quarterback, even after he won a national title, got them over the hump, not once, but twice. Okay, that means something. I think he's going to face less pressure at an NFL franchise than he did being in Athens, Georgia. Also played an NFL offense. That's one of the things Kirby Smart said at the national title game. During the media days, he was saying, NFL scouts like that. Stetson Bennett has played an NFL offense and can spit out an extensive NFL play, can do the verbiage and not get, as Kirby Smart so eloquently put it, marbles in his mouth. He can spit out the XY, dagger right, formation, play, all that, the tag. Like, he's got all that, and he's not going to get fazed by it. So from a football savvy, football IQ standpoint, Stetson Bennett's got it. He's got it in spades. Here's the last thing that I think we don't talk about enough with Stetson Bennett. Here's one of the most obvious pros to me that I don't know we talk about. Stetson Bennett, from the time that he walked on at Georgia to the time that he left with 2 national titles, just continued to get better. Just continued to get better. We still don't know exactly, I think, what Stetson Bennett's best football is. Because the last game I saw him play against TCU in person with my own eyeballs, he was darn near flawless. Some of that's on TCU, some of that's on what Georgia had offensively with weapons, but Stetson Bennett just made play after play and got Georgia in position after position and just ran the entire offense to perfection. And that was my knock on Georgia coming into the year was, okay, defense was great last year, a lot of talent. Stetson Bennett, we'll see. I think we kind of know what we have in him. Hey, hand up on me. We did not know what we had in Stetson Bennett. And that's the same thing I would say for any NFL franchise that is considering drafting him. You just don't know what you're going to get with him. He may still have even better football ahead of him. The potential of Stetson Bennett and the trend that he's on right now, I think it means something. I think it's something to look at because he played his best football by a mile this past season. What's next for him? We'll see. So if you're going to draft Stetson Bennett, there's 2 things that I think you got to take into account. 1, are you in position to gamble? Are you in position to draft Stetson Bennett? Do you have other insurances built in to where if it doesn't work out with Stetson Bennett, you're okay? You got more answers in the quarterback room. You've got a solid run game. You've got some things built around him that don't put too much pressure on Stetson Bennett being the answer for you. The second thing, do you have things built in to assist Stetson Bennett in his process? Because remember, it didn't work out right away at Georgia. They did everything in their power to try to get him to understand he wasn't going to be the guy at Georgia. Wasn't good enough early on. I believe that's the case. I believe he wasn't good enough when he got to Georgia, but he worked, he waited, he developed, got his shot, took advantage of it. That might be the same story in the NFL. I don't believe he'll be ready day one. Do you have a veteran quarterback that can assist him? Do you have the right quarterback coach that's willing to be patient with him and take some time with him, is committed to Stetson Bennett's progress? Is if you do, I think if you have those 2 things, ability to gamble and ability to help Stetson Bennett mature, I would take him. All right, I'm just saying, for my franchise, if I have some other quarterback already in place and Stetson Bennett understands, hey, man, you might not play for a few years, I would take him. The potential of what he could be continues to excite me with his NFL career. We've seen him progress in spades over his time at Georgia. His it factor, his intangibles, stuff you don't test at the combine. But I think it's Stetson Bennett's strengths, and I think some team, if they have the right situation for him, could hit it big. So, a lot of potential, which is kind of the word of the NFL draft, but I'm excited to see what Stetson Bennett ends up becoming, and that 4th round grade for me, I think, is right about accurate. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.